Before we get into this crazy, insane graphic novel, Gray, which I love to but I do have to hide from my kids. Here, Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passion. You're an amazing writer, producer, very talented storyteller. Where'd your passion for being a storyteller kind of came from? A certain novel or movie inspired, or something that was just natural for you as a child?
Well, this will sound rehearsed, but it's not, because my earliest memory of getting really excited about the power of stories was a production of The Importance of Being Earnest that I saw when I was 12. It was the seniors at my high school put it on, and I was baffled that they became these people who just, off stage were these normal people, on stage became the most glamorous, godlike beings. And I just didn't know that language could do that. And so it was Oscar Wilde. For me, it started with Oscar Wilde in Singapore, can you believe it? A production of Oscar Wilde by Raffles Institution in Singapore in about 1989 or something like that is where it started for me.
I love that. Before we get into it, I see you got the Jagged Little Pill behind you. I listened to the soundtrack a million times. I never got to see the actual Broadway version, but talk about like producing and working on that. I guess you also came up with the idea, I believe, or?
I did. Well, the good news for you and for your watchers and listeners is we're coming back.
Yay!
Jagged Little Pill is back on Broadway October 23rd, and we open in Sydney September 21st, I think. So either hemisphere can come see us once again. Cool. It was an idea that I'm very, very lucky in that I've got to spend a lot of my life working with and building on the work of my heroes and work that I just love. And so Jagged Little Pill, Alanis and I are exactly the same age. And I remember that album came out in my first year at college. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, you're the same age as me and you just made this? And I'm messing about in student theater and student radio and you made this? I was like, I am wasting my time. But it was this album that just stayed with me, for the 20 years, almost not quite 20 years, no, more than 20 years now since then. And then one day in the shower, I just was like, oh, it wants to be a Broadway musical. It was like the sort of moment of revelation was that there was in its themes and in its characters, there was a story that hadn't been told. And I just really wanted to tell that story, and now we have.
Oh, cool. So let's get into the graphic novel. It is based on a classic Oscar Wilde novel. I guess talk about why you decided to put that together into actually, a graphic novel version.
I mean, very much, it was a couple of things. I've always loved graphic novels. They're a form I love. If I switch my camera focus, you can see the one bookshelf in my office is just
that is awesome.
The great graphic novels, The Walking Dead, Invincible, Sandman, Scott McCloud, prominently featured here, Alan Moore, all the greats are in there. And it's just a form I've loved. I learned to read on comics. I learned to read literally, age sort of 3, 4 on comics. So I've always loved them. And I've always loved Oscar Wilde. And then I had this moment about 3 years ago where Dorian Gray had always been in my mind. My first girlfriend gave it to me when we were, I don't know, late teenagers or something. And I've always loved it. But I always it's a dangerous book. It has very big, dangerous ideas in it.
Oh, yeah, tons.
And it was banned for the better part of 50 years because
I can see why.
Some of those ideas are still dangerous. The idea that, that if you take away consequences, you destroy morality. And that idea of a world without consequences is also a very sort of superhero idea. Like the sort of core idea from, Spider-Man with great power becomes great responsibility to, Superman, what does the most powerful man on earth do with that power? That idea has always been sort of wired into superheroes. And so I just sort of had this moment where I thought, oh, Dorian Gray is a supervillain. um, or a superhero, depending on your point of view.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And I thought, okay, I want to write that. And so that was the start of the idea. And I pitched it to a couple of publishers, and a couple of them told me I was nuts. And then, one of them was as nuts as me. And the wonderful Ted Adams, who used to run IDW and now runs Clover Press, was like, no, I'm a sucker for that idea. If you write it, we'll publish it. And so that's what happened.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's just the first couple of pages. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening. I mean, she's like, there's getting undressed, and then there's a double hand job, and then this giant strap on. It's pretty crazy. So, I loved it. I definitely have to hide it when my kids are around. But I guess you also put together a really great team of like colorists, and and artists. Can you talk about that for this too?
Absolutely. So, well, first, just to be clear, whilst there is lots of sex in it, it's there for a reason. It's
Yeah,
not,
exactly. Yeah.
it's hopefully not gratuitous, because the original is about sex and sexuality. That's what Wilde was writing about. One of the reasons it was banned for years was because the central in it is a homosexual relationship, and Wilde and Gray have been sort of icons of the LGBTQ movement for 150 years, and so it was interesting playing with that in a modern context. What does it mean in a modern context? And the big theme of the book is sexual power and its abuse. So that's why all the sex is there. But that's not to say that none of it is fun. Some of it is fun too. But in terms of my wonderful team of artists, it was important to me, given the subject matter, that I have an all-female team, making the book, and also just as a personal choice, that it's actually a very international, very diverse team. So Eugenia Koumaki, our brilliant penciler, is Greek and lives in Greece, and Diana Greenhalgh, our inker, is Canadian, and Joana Lafuente is Portuguese and lives in Portugal. And so we've been putting this book together through 4 countries and 2 continents for the last 2 years. None of us have ever met. It's all been on Slack, and we've been making the book. And Joana is the only one I had worked with before. Joana colored Darkness Visible for me and made it so beautiful, and brings this brilliant sort of noir sensibility to it, which was exactly right for Gray as well. So yeah, it's been really great and fun to work with these 3 extraordinarily talented ladies across the world.
Yeah, thank God for technology. I mean, so many like comic book artists and even bands I've interviewed during this pandemic has gotten work done just by sending tracks or pages to each other over the internet. So
yeah, well, it's also been a great. You're right. Like normally I spend my days making stuff in theaters and on film and TV sets, and for the last 18 months that's been a lot harder. Theaters impossible, TV sets much harder, and instead we've been making graphic novels and board games and audio books and audio drama and all that safely with no COVID protocols from our living rooms across the internet. So that's been a nice silver lining.
Cool. So this comes out June 30th. So is there anything else coming up for you that you're allowed to talk about before I let you go?
Sure. Well, Gray is coming out in 2 ways. The graphic novel comes out June 30th, the first volume of the graphic novel. But then the second thing we're doing is we're dramatizing it as an Audible audio drama.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're having so much fun with that. I'm in the middle of writing that. We have the most amazing cast. Lauren Patton, who's the star of Jagged Little Pill, Tony-nominated, is going to play Dorian Gray. Our detectives being played by Richard Schiff, obviously very famous for The West Wing and many other things. Neil Brown Jr., star of CBS's SEAL Team, is playing Hank Wutan. Milena Govich, who just is the director of FBI, just directed the finale of FBI this week, is our director and is also playing Baroness Chevening. And my old friend Samuel Barnett, who was our Dirk Gently in my show Dirk Gently Solicitor Detective Agency, is coming back as Baron Arnheim, the villain. And so we're really looking forward to that. We're going to make that over the summer. It's going to come out in the fall, sometime in September, October. So yeah, this is a summer of Gray for me in every medium.
I love it. Well, keep up the amazing work. And if you ever wanted to do another like 90s music Broadway, I loved how Green Day did America's Idiot and Jagged Little Pill. They should do a single soundtrack, take that movie and make it a Broadway version of all the classic 90s alternative rock, turn that into Broadway songs.
That's not a terrible idea. That's not a terrible idea at all. I'll take that one under advisement.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I will listen to that like every day. So, well, keep up the
Of course,
amazing work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.